Recap from last week? How am I going to do a recap from last week? No, I don't think I can do a recap from last week. We have new things to do this week. But some things we're going to sort of touch on. Let's see. I'm just checking to see what we touched upon last week and did we finish what I had wanted to do. I think we did. I think we sort of did, which is good. Baruch Hashem. Oh wait, a lot of pages here. This was the document that I used last week. I think the last thing that we did sorry. I see what I did. Okay. Some of these we're going to be coming back to. Some of these I said. And no, we're going to leave this for now. We're going to come back to some of these, but right now we're going here. Okay. I'm sorry, Kim. I do want to move ahead. Let's see. Okay, so we are moving ahead with talking about the actual order of the prayers, of the morning prayers, and we're splitting it up into a few different lessons because each of the segments are very important. Now, a lot of people are not used to thinking of the tefillah as having, at least the Shacharit, which is where the majority of the tefillah is, are not used to thinking of the morning prayer as having very specific sections to it, which are compared to kind of stations on the way into the palace to make it in time for my audience with the king. That's the common parable for it. And before we start talking about it, I just have one thing in terms of praying with simplicity. Last week we spent a good amount of time talking about praying with honesty, and I just want to start off with a very sweet story that's in Siach Sarfei Kodesh, which is, I've mentioned this before, it's kind of the oral, there's a whole nice collection of oral history, oral teachings that were transmitted by Rav Levi Yitzchak Bender, who was one of the leaders of the Uman and Jerusalem Breslov community of the last generation. And so he gave over this story. He said, Siper Rabbeinu Zal, Rabbi Nachman told a story. Ma'aseh mishnei na'arim k'tanim. That's a story about two little boys. Shahayu avim ze leze me'od. They loved each other very much. They were very attached to each other. Ad shelo hayu cholim lechyot ze b'lo. They couldn't survive without each other. They were so bound up. Upam echad nechlash echad mehem. And they came, and one of them got sick, and he got weak. Haya sheni betzar gadol ad le'me'od. And his friend was in terrible distress over this. And he asked, what can I do so that my friend, my beloved friend, will get better? They said to him, say Tehillim, should recite Psalms, v'hu b'tmimut, and he in his, innocence and simplicity, because he was a child, hu b'tmimut hitpil amar Tehillim. And so he started to say Tehillim. And b'chol pam shamar kama kapitlach, after saying, a couple of chapters, every time he'd finish a few chapters, shalat chaviro im hivri. They ask him, are you well? Are you well? Are you already better? And the friend would say, no, I'm not feeling better yet. And so, okay, go back and say another few kapitlach, another few chapters of Tehillim, and then he'd go back again and say, are you feeling better yet? And they would say, when he asked people, the family, is he well yet? And they would say, no, he's still sick. Amar od. And he would go back and say another few chapters. Ad shaitala l'fuah b'shlemut, until his friend was fully healed. Where Rabbi Nachman told this very simple story, he meant to convey to his students the need to just pray with a lot of simplicity and innocence like a child. Just to keep on doing our best, to keep on throwing those tefillot up on high, until Be'ezrat Hashem, the Yeshua will come, the salvation will come. That that with every single prayer, little by little, the harsh judgments that are on the person or the situation, they get relieved. Until all of the harsh judgments that are on the person or in the situation, that they will be relieved and repaired. So that's one little story. Another one that's similar is a story about when Rabbi Nachman already had tuberculosis. I don't have it in front of me because I couldn't find it in the maftechot. I should have looked a little bit more carefully. I probably have it marked some other way, but in Siach Safek Kodesh I have a lot of marks. I have a lot of marks in the margins and in the indexes, and I couldn't seem to find it when I was looking for it, so I'll just tell you Baal Peh. I'll just tell you from my memory. And if I make an error, somebody, just please forgive me. So Rabbi Nachman's grandson, he had grandchildren already by the time he passed away. He only passed away when he was 37, but he had married right after bar mitzvah, so he did already have grandchildren. In any case, when he was already at the end of his life, because he was very, very beset by the tuberculosis that killed him, he was coughing a lot. He wasn't well, and one of his grandsons came in and he held him on his lap and he said, daven for me. He said to his grandson, daven for me, I should be well. So his grandson, having been raised in the environment of tzaddikim, he said, get by here the golden azegel, hand over your gold pocket watch, because it was the way of tzaddikim, and it still is, that to give a bracha or to pray, like they might want to hold on to an object that's a precious object of yours. So he said, get by here the golden azegel, give me your gold watch, and I'll pray. So he handed him the gold watch. Meanwhile, Rabbi Nachman it was dafka because his students had asked him what's the proper way to pray. So he called his grandchild onto his lap and he said, daven for me. And then it was like a demonstration that he was doing with his students. So his grandson, little child, was holding onto the watch. He closed his eyes, said, Ribono Shalom, please make my Zayda well. Very, very, with a lot of hartzakite, very, very earnestly, with tears. And Rabbi Nachman, after he finished, he pointed to, he gestured to his students and he said, punkt hazeh, exactly like this, just like this. That's what it means. So we should be zocheh. Hashem should help us to always pray like little children with great simplicity and honesty and integrity and focus and trust in Hashem, in His goodness and His benevolence, just like a simple child. Okay, now let us start to talk about the parts of the order of prayers. Now this is the first page of a table of contents. Well, actually, it's not the first page. It's already into the tefillah itself, but of a sefer that I'm using for teaching other classes. It's a sefer I love a lot. I don't know if I brought it home with me today. I think I did, actually. I think I did bring it home with me. I want to show it to you so you can see what it looks like in a second. I did bring it home because I'm done with it in class for now. So this is the book. I don't think I showed this to you. So this is Yedid Nefesh. This is the weekday siddur of Rabbi Chiel Bar Lev. Now, he includes explanations of the deeper meditations and focus of the Arizal, which I spoke about, I think, last week. Rabbi Nachman didn't necessarily hold that people should be using the Arizal's kavanot, unless it's for them as simple and straightforward as saying just the straightforward meaning of the words. But that's a long road ahead of a person. Rabbi Chiel Bar Lev. Here, I'll write it down. He actually, one of his books was translated into English, which is sort of an introductory work to Kabbalistic concepts according to the Ramchal, called Song of the Soul. So he's just a contemporary Mikubal teacher. Classic, straightforward, of the, I would say, like the normal and reliable Kabbalist schools of Kabbalists in Yerushalayim. In any case, actually I think he lives in Petach Tikva. Anyway, so in this siddur, one of the things that I like to show people, and which we're focused on in one of the other classes, is how nice and neatly he organizes the morning prayers into a way we're probably not used to thinking of it. See, we have tefillat ha'asiyah, which means the prayers of the order of morning prayers that do the work when we say them properly, correctly, and with proper focus, that do the work of uplifting and refining the world of Asiyah. And so we see that it's really basically from everything that you say from when you wake up in the morning and do from when you wake up in the morning until it's time to start what we call Psukei de Zimra. Okay, and you'll notice that between all these worlds or segments, we have a Kaddish, except here between Bria and Atzilut, the third and the fourth levels or realms. There's no Kaddish there between, because you're not allowed to make an interruption. You have to join together what we call Geula L'Tfilah Shmona Esrei. The standing silent prayer has to be bound together with what comes before it. You can't interrupt, which is prayers about the redemption. It's called Smichat Geula L'Tfilah. So, as it's described in the Talmud, and it's codified inside our siddur. So that's the only place where you're not going to have afterwards, between segments, you're not going to have a Kaddish. Now, so let's just break it down. Now, we don't want to talk about Kabbalistic things or anything like that, but the problem is that it's really hard for us to talk about tefillah, about prayer, without getting very deep, because it is a very deep experience. Now, tefillah, we normally think about that it's just something that we do really, Beinenu Leven HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's between us and Hashem, and that's true. But that's only one part of the importance of the tefillah. The other part of the importance of tefillah is that it's important for the whole world. And that is also part of your job as a Jew, to not only pray for your own needs and from the place of your own personal identification with the language of the prayers, in as much as they address your own personal needs, or even our collective needs as a people, in very obvious ways, but still there is a whole other world of tefillah that has to do with things that are beyond the simple meaning of the words. And we pray with great simplicity, meaning you're not supposed to necessarily, unless it's really something that's appropriate for you, you're not necessarily supposed to go looking into all of this, but it is important to know that it's part of the tefillah, it's embedded and encoded within the language of the tefillah in your siddur. It's one of the reasons why, when discussing whether it's important to pray in Hebrew or you should pray in the language that you know, even though almost all of the prayers, if you had to make a choice between praying in a language that you understand and that you're comfortable in, and praying in the actual language of Lashon HaKodesh in Hebrew, for almost all parts of the prayers, it's more important to pray in the language that you understand. Nevertheless, Jews tend to be pretty, to hold pretty tightly to the language of the siddur, even if they don't understand it that well. And one of the reasons why is because we know on a very deep level that there's something very powerfully embedded and encoded within the actual words. And so we want to be a part of that, even if sometimes we struggle to understand. And so this was something that came up in the first class. So the usual, which we'll get there in a second, because Rabbi Nachman actually spoke about it in terms of developing greater facility with the language, but you really just start with, little by little, acquiring comfort and ease with phrase by phrase from the early part of the tefillah, and you expand on that little by little until you have more mastery over the language. And so you just keep on growing in the process of understanding, because the language is very important. Now, so let's see, in our first section, Olam HaSiyah, when we speak about the world of action, it all sounds very lofty and very abstract, but let's just say, the first part of the tefillah, the first world of the tefillah, is like you have to have all your ingredients in place to be able to begin the process of prayer, which, as the Rambam says, includes shevach, right, praise of God, submitting your requests before God, and expressing gratitude to God. So those things are coming, but at the outset, you first have to have all your pieces in place, so to speak, that so that you can even begin the process. So you wake up in the morning, you wash your hands, and you express gratitude for having a functioning body and for having your soul restored to you. And then it's time to say the morning blessings, etc. And you get yourself, if you're a man, so you have talis and tefillin to put on, meaning that's also preparatory to being able to pray. And if and we don't have to, as women, we don't have to say Kriyat Shema at the specific time before the time of Kriyat Shema in the morning. Men do, and so therefore they have a Kriyat Shema that they have to say if they're not saying Shema immediately. They have Kriyat Shema Shel Shachar as soon as they get up. And then there's Ketoret, and there's Korbanot. We have then the incense offering is recited, and then we have Korbanot. We have all the offerings that are the recitation of the offerings that were brought are meant to substitute. Neshama Parim Sfatenu, that we use our lips to recite the nature of those offerings, different korbanot, different sacrifices that were brought in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, and that's the way of staying connected with that and actually meriting, because we're reciting what those korbanot are. It's considered as if we had brought them, if we have the right kavanah. So that's all in the beginning. And then we have Tana Devei Rabbi Yishmael, which is 13, those are 13 attributes for 13 methods by which the Torah is expounded upon. And for anybody who hears the word 13, so the number 13 should also remind us that at the end of the tefillah, at the end of the prayers, we have a closure of another 13, which is the recitation of the 13 attributes of mercy, and they parallel each other. So it's all preparatory. It means before you can even start the process of prayer, as defined by the Rambam, which is praise, making requests, and offering and expressions of gratitude, and it's like in that order. So we first have to make sure that we have everything in place. Now, the everything that we have in place is very interesting. Like, think about the tefillah of asiyah, the world of action, means the world of all of the stuff that we need in order to be physically, in order to have what we require to be able to be speaking human beings with energy and resources to be able to come before our Creator and communicate with Him. So that's going to be inclusive of all of our morning blessings, which that's part of what, if you look at the morning blessings, that's really what they express. And korbanot, the offerings, the sacrifices, reciting the sacrifices, many women don't do. Many women don't do that, but it is part of the tefillah. So we have the sacrifices, we have ketoret, we have the incense offerings. You can imagine also that, and that's the way it's described, is that in that section of the tefillah, what you're really doing is like gathering your materials of mineral, vegetable, animal, and human, right? It's sort of like pulling together into yourself everything that exists in the world, or some sampler of everything that exists, in order to incorporate it into the human, and not only human, but holy Jewish means of communication, of tefillah, of prayer, which we're about to embark on. So tefillat ha'asiyah is mainly about, at least on the level that we can understand, being in touch via our awareness and our words, being in touch with everything that exists and getting ourselves in order, even in a very straightforward physical way, like because we got up, we washed our hands, we're back to ourselves, we go to the bathroom, all that stuff, just getting ourselves in a place of being able to approach prayer fully girded, fully, how can I put it, like, what's the word? Fully, I don't want to say, like, it's not with ammunition, it doesn't sound right, it's like fully laden with all of the stuff that we need to bring with us on our prayer journey into where we're going. Now, the way it's described also, I said we have like this mashal of, here I am, I have an appointment with the king. I have an audience. I've been waiting like a year, let's say, for this audience. And finally the day has arrived. And on the day that I've been waiting for so long, I've been preparing for it also for very long, because I know that this day is coming. They gave me this date a long time ago. They issued a proclamation, or I got a summons that said, you requested an audience, you're having it on day so-and-so, time so-and-so, be on time. It means more than just be on time, it means be early, because like, the way I like to think about it is like a flight, like your flight might be taking off at 9 a.m., but you can't show up at the airport at 9 a.m. If you show up at the airport at 9 a.m., you're not getting on that flight. So you need a certain amount of time just to show up, present yourself, make sure everything is in place. And so now maybe someone has rahmanas on you, if they'll have compassion on you, if you show up like at the last possible second, they'll let you on the plane. Although I have to say they've gotten a lot more strict about this over the years. I remember doing that like when I don't know, maybe 30 years ago. Like actually they let me, they had already closed the door and they were about to pull away from the sleeve. And they're like, the people at the desk are like, well, you could try, see if they'll let you in. And they let me run down the sleeve as they're literally about to pull away, and I'm banging on the outside of, please open this, let me on the flight. And they actually did. Nowadays that would just get you arrested, I think. But those were the days. So they let you smoke on planes then too. I mean, it was a different world. So you can't just show up. You have to be prepared. And you don't just show up, you show up like dressed a certain way and with certain accoutrements with you. Because for this audience, you want to make sure that you have everything in place and that you are properly arrayed. So it's not only a question of dress, it's also that you have, I don't know, are you going to put on your makeup? Are you going to put on your perfume? Are you going to, what are you want to eat well before you go, right? Even though the truth is that you're not eating before davening, but the idea is you want to be as well set up as possible with all that you require in order to be able to have your audience with the king, with Yishuv Hadat, properly composed and with focus and with energy. So that's our tefillat ha'asiyah basically, is all the stuff that you do before you even, before you're getting anywhere, before you have to make your way to the palace. Now, when you get to the palace, so you don't just walk in, there's a moat, and there are gates, and there are guards, and you have, you're going to have a whole process that you have to go through until you're going to finally have your audience. But we all understand that the point of this whole process of, I'm going to break it down very simply, because as we go through from lesson to lesson, we're going to go through it very carefully. But, first there's all the preparatory stuff that you basically do at home. And when it comes to tefillah, this is actually the kind of stuff, tefillat hasiyah, that people do at home. This is the sort of, some people will pray tefillat hasiyah in the shul, some of it. They'll say korbanot in the shul. But the truth is that this is the sort of thing that a lot of men, they time their tefillah to make it in time to join the tzibur, to join the congregation when they're up to the beginning of Psukei de Zimra. There's nothing illegitimate about that, because tefillat asiyah is comparable to the kinds of stuff that you do in preparation before you even set out on the way to go to make your appointment. Now, when we think about this idea of the appointment, that makes sense. I mean, the point of all of this process is for those moments that you're going to be in a private audience with the king. And that's tefillah. When we say tefillah, when the Talmud talks about tefillah, it means Shmona Esrei. It means the standing silent prayer, which we call the Amidah. We call it Shmona Esrei, the 18 benedictions, which is really 19. But either way, so we have, that's really the point of it. But you can't, like I said about getting on the flight, you can't just show up for that. You have to do a whole lot of stuff ahead of time, and it takes time to be able to be in a fit state, to be able to walk in and have that audience at the appointed moment. You'll have your time, but you have a lot of things to do ahead of there so that you'll be ready. So the first thing that you do is you must gather together all of your kochot, all of your inner and outer resources, and even better, it's sort of like you have this sampling of a kind of gift that you're bringing to the palace, because it's not just you with your requests, you're doing that, but you want to come with a kind of tribute. Now, even though the king doesn't need anything from you, he has everything, but nevertheless, you don't come empty-handed, you come with something in hand. And in the case of tefillah, what you're really bringing along with you is you say, here I am, I woke up this morning, I'm so grateful for the fact, Hashem, that you gave me a mouth and a mind that expresses together. They express my soul and my soul's yearning to come close to you. And so I'm going to do something that only I can do. Only a human being can do this. I'm going to reflect on all of creation and carry all of that with me. And so through the recitation of korbanot, the offerings, ketoret, that's the incense, through the recitation of all of these different parts of the tefillah, I am bringing all of this along with me as part of in preparation for my audience. Okay, now, 1 second. Okay, so let's go back. I said that there is a teaching Or should I break down the rest of the 4 just in general first? Okay, I think we should do that. So that's your first thing. Like, you have to first get there. And you get there, and there is a moat and there are gates, meaning now you have to kind of run the gauntlet. You have to pass through the Shomrim. And that's called Psukei de Zimra. That's the next level, which are the songs of praise. And I think next week, let me just check and see. I don't think that I'm combining them together this week. Let me check. Yeah, next week we'll go through, we're going to go through Psukei de Zimra more carefully. So that's the second place. And then the third is from Baruch Hu, the blessings of Shema, and the blessings and after Shema, post Shema. So that's the next section, which is equivalent to, let's say, if Psukei de Zimra, if all of these, basically it's chapters of Tehillim, of Psalms, and other prayers, if all of that is what gets you into the palace and in the first antechamber of the palace, then the next place you go is going to be, it's getting closer to your time. So those who have an audience, I'm going to get to the priorities in prayer. I'm going to say, it's in a second, and good for asking. Freda says, if you only have so much time to pray, how much of this can you do? We'll talk about it in a second. Women's obligations are different, and I'll tell you in a moment. So, and so then you get into the closer chamber. It means to say this is not an outer area of the palace. This is already the place where the ministers of the king are and his closer attendants, because it's like for the next, however many who have an audience coming soon, so they're pulled forward and say, okay, Golshevsky, Fried, etc., step forward. It's time to move into the next chamber. You move forward, and it's time to say the blessings of Shema, and what comes afterward. And then, when it's your time to start Shemona Esrei, there's no more announcement because it's just you, and so it's just sort of, like one of the ministering angels there just says, gives you one of these, come on, move forward, and you go in. And you go in for your private audience, and that is Tfilat Atzilut. The word of Atzilut means Etzel. It's from the language of Atzilut, means to be close, to be near. And so it's the prayer of close intimacy with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where you have to learn how to forget that anything else surrounds you and just to focus on the fact that it's only you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all of the world, and he has all the time in the world for you. So that's Atzilut. And then afterwards, after Shemona Esrei, which I didn't put on this page, that continues what's called Yeridat HaShefa. Remember, I said that the second part of Tefillah, which a lot of us don't identify so much with because we're regular, simple people, is that your prayer does something really important for all of the world. And it's called Yeridat HaShefa. It's called drawing down divine benevolence and abundance into the world as a whole. It's not just about you. It's about there being rain in its season, and that people who are not well should all be well, and that the Jewish people should have abundant parnassah, and that there should be peace in the world, and nobody should suffer, and there should be justice in the world. And so all of that is something that has to do not just with me, but it's with everybody. And because of that, it's like once you get past Shemona Esrei, it's about the flow coming down. And when we get there, we'll talk about it. We're not there yet. I just want you to have the basic breakdown. Now, Freda asked a good question. She said, if I'm going to say every word of the prayers, from the moment I wake up in the morning, including korbanot and all of the, and Ktoret and all of the preliminaries, every bit of Psukei de Zimra, every word, how long does it take to pray? Regular Shacharit, not Shabbos. You could, everyone pipe in. How long would it take you to pray if you were going to say every single thing that it says to say in Tfilat Shacharit, the Akedah, like there's a lot of stuff there. Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim, the first part of it is quite long. So how long does it take on average? If you're understanding what you're saying and you say, yeah, okay, so Kim says an hour. You daven Nusach, you daven Edot Mizrach. It's a little bit less. It's more terse. 2 hours, Freda says. More than an hour. Yeah, it takes time. Okay, it really does take time. I mean, for me, it can take me an hour and 15 minutes. It's a nice, I would say an hour, but it's a time commitment. Now, in terms of women's minimum obligation in prayer, there is a broad spectrum of opinion about how much is enough with women. I'm only going to tell you what the consensus is, because I have to tell you, you can, like there are people who rely on the Magen Avraham that if you just wake up in the morning and say Modeh Ani, you've basically covered your bare bones minimum of tefillah. But most poskim, most halachic authorities do not say that suffices for women, but at the very least, Shema and Shmona Esrei, you have brachot also to say. But I want to tell you that my teacher, Rebbetzin Barkin, she shouldn't be well, when she spoke to Rav Shach many years ago and asked him, like, could I please tell me, I'm an average person, I have a busy life, I have a house full of children. Like, I want to daven a proper davening, but in an amount of time that's possible for me. So, for like a busy woman. So he said, this is what you say. I've been telling this woman for the last 25 years. So this is what you say. You say brachot, right? You wake up in the morning, Netilat Yadayim, the basic run of brachot. Netilat Yadayim, Asher Yatzar, Elokai Neshama, Birchot HaShachar, Birchot HaTorah, Birchot HaShachar. Brachas. Baruch She'amar, Ashrei, Yishtabach, the blessings of Shema, Shema, and run through to the end of Shmona Esrei. Now, that is like, depending on your familiarity with the tefillah, that's basically a 20-minute investment of time. Now, some people would take longer. I'm not going to say no. But if you're saying every word, and you're familiar with the tefillah, and you're fairly focused, and you're not schlepping, so it's about 20 minutes. Okay, so that's what he told her. Now, I remember when and I've just gone with this, that's just what I have gone with. So I realized later, years later, when I was learning more about the interrelationship between the different sections of tefillah, I realized, so Rav Shach was basically telling her, you have to visit at least you have to have at least something from each of these four worlds of tefillah in order for it to be really considered complete. You could get away with less. Some people will. Can you get away without saying anything of Birchot HaShachar, of Psukei de Zimra? Well, according to the more lenient opinions, so say brachot and say Shema and say Shmona Esrei. Okay, but you're missing something that's quite important there. So, in the interest of maintaining the siddur, right, of the order. So Aleinu is good. He didn't say Aleinu. He didn't say that that's an absolute must, although I will say that it is a good idea, because you do want to be able to have at least one element of the fifth piece, which is Yeridat HaShefa. So Aleinu is a pretty important tefillah, but Aleinu is pretty important, yeah. But if you're really, really pressed for time, so the brachas, meaning what you need to say, Netilat Yadayim, Asher Yatzar, Elokai Neshama, Birchot HaShachar, which then includes Birchat Torah. Okay, so those are very important. Now, most women don't say the rest of this, right? Most women don't say the rest of this on a regular basis. And the truth is that if your prayer practice includes these elements, so that's very good from Olam Hasiyah. That's from the first level. And then, of course, we work our way forward. Here, Baruch She'amar, Ashrei, and then Yishtabach. Ashrei is not listed separately here, but it's the main chapter of Psukei de Zimra. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. And then you have all of this, basically. You sort of do need that. And then we have Shmona Esrei. Okay? Now, let's go back. I wanted to show you. Now, again, it is a time investment. You can't do it in 5 minutes. But in terms of the concepts of tefillah and the necessary points, what Rav Shach told my Rebbetzin Barkin It totally hits upon all of the main 4 elements. He did not say Aleinu, I don't think. Now, I just want to take you back here. So I happen to love this so much, I wanted to share it with you. And then we're going to keep on going through different sources relating specifically to the first world, because we still have time, Baruch Hashem. I hope everybody's following me, and I'm not being too abstract. I want it to be very practical. But this is a hakdama, even though it's not specifically, until now, it wasn't specifically Breslov. These are concepts about tefillah that are just assumed, that, in Chassidut and in Rabbi Nachman's work, this is just a mental framework to place your tefillah in that's actually pretty important. And it's assumed among sources that you know this. So I always want to tell people about it so that they know, because if you haven't seen it inside, you're not necessarily going to be familiar. Okay? Now, here we go. Now here, in this teaching, this is from Otzer Hayira, which we were actually learning out from last week, about kavanah. So this is I just want to go through it carefully with you, because it's very important. He's talking about the development. Freda asks, that's helpful from Rebbe Tzimbarkin, after the minimum, what comes next? So that's about priority in prayer. There are certain things in Psuke de Zimra. The next thing is that you have to add, there is a specific order for what you add in Psuke de Zimra, and as you have more time. The truth is I have a document, I should probably send it out. If anybody's interested, for women, what's considered priority in prayer, as you have more time, there's like it's very clear in the poskim about what order you add, okay? And also on Shabbos as opposed to weekday. I should send it out. You know what? Anybody who's interested in it, send me an email. I'll happily send. Okay? Okay. Now when we think about like the steady progression of development in tefillah, learning more about tefillah, we're developing greater focus and mental, like investment and spiritual investment in tefillah, we call kavanah. So Rabbi Nachman says, when you meet a convert, and when the ger shenit gayer, when he first starts out, so he's like just managing to get the letters of the words out with their proper sound. He's so over the top, he's like so over the roof about being able just to manage to say these words in Hebrew, and he's so moved by that, and he's so excited by that, even though he doesn't have any great understanding of the words like that itself. He calls it a zchia gdola. He's like blown away by what a merit it is and what a privilege it is to be able to pray these words, even though he doesn't really know much about what they mean. A person should really console himself and cause himself to rejoice. If you just manage to get the words out, you have a lot to be happy about. Okay, we don't have to be. It's important to always be looking forward to greater growth and connection in the language of tefillah, but we should at the baseline. Ashreinu matov chalkeinu, how happy we are and how fortunate we are. We should feel it and know it, that we get to hold the siddur in our hands, say these words, to whatever degree we understand them. We have translations available to us. So that itself, we have to be jumping for joy that we have it at all, right? Rabbi Nachman says, if a person is always feeling like they're insufficient in their prayer because they don't know, so they're losing the biggest opportunity that they have, which is to be happy with the ability to enunciate the words, read them off the page, and say them. And that itself is the gateway, that kind of just simple joy, is the gateway to being afterwards able to pray with cheshek and hitlahavut, right? Because the next level is not about getting your having such deep kavanot, but just arousing your emotional connection to what you're saying. And that you can have just because you have the joy that opens the way, and then you're going to feel really moved by what you're saying, even if you're not very deeply understanding it. And a person should also not get discouraged and not get confused by the fact that they would like to be able to pray the whole tefillah through without distraction, and they find that they're not able to do so yet. It's a mental and spiritual and emotional discipline to focus in tefillah. And it's really not easy. So if you can only do it exactly, if you can only get through a little bit of the tefillah and then you find that your mind wanders, it's because it's a kind of muscle, like Kim says, which is 100% true. And sometimes you just can't focus, exactly. So Rabbi Nachman says, if you can't start off like with this kind of demand on yourself that you're going to be able to focus all the way through, and if not, then you didn't. No, because what you do is when you're just starting out, you really just have to start off and say, okay, here I am at the beginning. I'm going to really give it my all for this part of the tefillah. Take it in a manageable small amount. And then if I find that afterwards I feel a little bit exhausted, because it's true, your mind can wander, it ebbs and flows. Sometimes you don't have physical energy. Okay, so you accept it and you do your best, because if a person is a perfectionist about this, not going to get anywhere at all. If a person expects of themselves that they're going to have the mental and spiritual and emotional discipline to maintain kavanah, real strong kavanah throughout the entirety of the tefillah, of course. I'm not talking about not being. It's not a question about being at the beginning. He's not talking to beginners. He's talking to his Hasidim. You understand? It means to say you have to imagine yourself being like, realize that we're always just starting off and beginning, and we must. And by the way, this whole little section is a play on is sort of a variation on an anecdote. Rabbi Nachman had a student. Well, let me finish the end of the paragraph, then I'll tell you the story, and then you'll see the link. So, meaning instead of being able to, let's say if I only have enough mental and spiritual and physical energy to really focus well for 5 minutes, and I have 20 minutes of tefillah ahead of me. So sometimes we say, well, like I by the time I get past the first 5 minutes, I've already lost my thread. And so what am I doing with the rest of it? He says, no. You see what happens? If you can do 5 minutes of good focus, then be very, very happy with those first 5 minutes. Focus there, and don't worry too much about the rest of the tefillah, because it's like we said before, it's like a muscle. And it's a discipline that you have to develop, and as time goes on, it becomes easier. Each time a person should, what does he say? You have to really, like gird yourself, really hold tight and be strong a little bit and another little bit. A little bit you can do. If I'm not focusing on the totality of the tefillah right now, but just the few words that are in front of me, that I can focus on. And then I get better at this kind of discipline, so I'm able to do it a little bit longer. He said, first invest, and he's talking to Hasidim. He's not talking to newcomers. He's talking to students who are already learning Kabbalah Rizal, who were already his students for a very long time. He's not talking to simple people. He says, focus your energy so that you at least just brachot that you're saying with real strong kavanah. Ad Baruch Shamar, first section. Char shemagia l'sham yishtadel yitpaleh b'chavanah ad od eze chelik ma'atfilah. And once you've mastered that, then you can move forward and expand your ability to focus into the next section of the tefillah, which of course we learned is what? Through Psukei de Zimra, until the beginning of the blessings of Shema. V'chein lahalan, and so on and so forth. So it continues. Okay? Now I'll tell you the story that goes along with this. So Rabbi Nachman had a student who came to him, and he said, Rabbi, I have a very hard time focusing on the davening. It's hard for me to focus on the tefillah, and I feel like I'm wasting my time. So Rabbi Nachman said to him, he said, in this Gilgul, now sometimes Rabbi Nachman said things you have to wonder, did he really mean it that way, or was he just being really, really psychologically astute? Open question. He said to him, and by the way, it could be read either way. You can read it either way. I'll explain why. So he said to him, in this Gilgul, the thing that you have to be mitaken, the thing that you have to fix in tefillah, is just brachot. You still have to say the rest, from Baruch Shamar until the rest of the tefillah. You still have to say it, you have an obligation. But your real thing that you came down to fix in this world is brachot. It's the first section of the tefillah. When we say brachot, it means, the whole first section. So he says that's where you should put your energy. Okay. So after that, the Chassid felt very comforted, because he's like, okay, that much I can handle. Like the idea of having to have really good, strong kavanah through the entirety of the tefillah was a little much for him. He said, this much I can do. The first section, if Rabbi Nachman said that's what I came here to fix in my neshama, so then, okay, I'll do the rest as well as I can, but I'm really going to focus in the first part, because that's what I'm here for. He did this for quite a while, for many months, and then he came back to Rabbi Nachman. He said, I want to thank you so much, because it's become second nature to me. I'm able to hold my kavanah throughout the entire first part of the tefillah. I don't worry about the rest of it because he told me, and I'm very, very happy because I really feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Thank you. So Rabbi Nachman said, you already have managed to, you're holding with good kavanah, and you're able to hold through the entirety of the beginning of the tefillah. So now your tikkun, now your tikkun is to increase into, from all of it has to be also brachot and also all of Psukei Zimra. Now, and so on. He worked with him. That means to say he kept on encouraging him to take it section by section until he was able to fully pray with kavanah all the way through the tefillah. Now, I said before, maybe it's just that Rabbi Nachman he was extremely psychologically astute, or maybe he knew that this was the tikkun of his soul, but in the end it doesn't matter. Why? Because the way it works is like this. When something is a struggle, so it means here is your work, right? So by mastering that which had been originally a struggle for him, when he went back and Rabbi Nachman said, oh, you now have another chelek. It's like having another piece of your neshama that's come to you that needs further rectification, because your soul has many, many levels and layers to it. So there's going to be another piece that now you can fix because you've already mastered this level. So then he said to him, okay, now it's from Baruch She'amar until Yishtabach, the next section of the tefillah. And he sent him on his way to continue to do exactly as he had done with the first section into the second section. Everyone's with me? So it winds up being exactly the same thing. Yes, very good. Kim has a good point. She says this is the makifin. Exactly. Because at that level where he was, the thing that he was struggling with is where his correction is. And once he's already mastered it, so it's time to bring in the next level, to bring in the next place where he has the work to do. And so it doesn't have to be read psychologically. We read it psychologically and spiritually because it winds up being the same thing. Now that he can go further, so he has an obligation to keep on going. Okay, so let's move on. Yes, correct. Breaking it down into something that's manageable. Now, let's examine a little more carefully into Birchot HaShachar themselves. I'm not going to do all of it. I'm going to give you an insight based on one section, actually two ideas of Birchot HaShachar. Let's see. Kol inyan Birchot HaShachar sh'mevarchim baboker. This is from Likutey tefillot. This is from Tefillin Vav, I think. So the entire matter, and does he mean the entire matter? He means to say, I have this way to explain it, of the morning blessings. Is to awaken the life force and the vitality that's in every single limb of the body via the blessing. Like, Pokeach Ivrim, right? Rokah ha'aretz al hamayim. We have all of these different blessings that address the fact that we have working body parts that can be mustered. All of these energies can be mustered into for our service of God, and so it's via the blessing that you actually draw energy into the body. I remember I was in Uman last year, and for those who've come to Uman with us, so we get up really early in the morning, and a lot of times we haven't slept at night. So in the morning, after Avodah Shachar, so we're always kind of looking around for some woman who did sleep during the night, so she can say Birchot HaShachar for us, because if you haven't slept all night, there are certain blessings you're not allowed to say. So if you can find someone who can say them, and you say Amen to that blessing, so then you can be yotzei with her. So usually at the Tziyun, we're digging around looking for somebody who has slept. And after we sing Zmiras HaBoker, so we're looking for somebody who's going to be able to, there are songs that we sing in the morning. I usually bring the guitar to the Tziyun, and then it's time to say Birchot HaShachar. So I think it was last year this time. I think I'm pretty sure it's the Thursday morning that we were at the Tziyun. No, I'm not going to sing now again. Maybe I will. Maybe if we have a few minutes at the end. So hold on. So we're in the little shul, because I always run into the little shul. So we were at the Tziyun, or we had run into the little women's section there. Anyway, I don't remember. But one of these great Yerushalmikas, the Yerushalmiot, they're like super strong. They're really good daveners. And so I have all my beautiful, my beautiful American ladies, my Anglos, in all of their beautiful colors and all of their variety. And they have so much earnestness. And this woman gets up and she's going to be Yotze everybody. She's going to be Motzi everybody. She's going to help us fulfill all of our obligations. She gets up. And she gets up and she starts to say these brachot with so much energy. She goes, Poikeach Ivrim, Malbish Ahumim. And you can feel what a chayus, how much energy she's drawing into herself and via the agency of the bracha. And the women who were with me, were any of you there? We always come across these Yerushalmikas in the morning who are like, they're real strong ones. I think it was last year's group. If anybody was there with me, so there were a whole bunch of girls who, they're not familiar with, the real tough Yerushalmi, Breslovers. They don't really know them. And they're real powerhouses of tefillah. And I remember some of the girls were looking at me like, whoa, this is how you say it. And that is how you say it, right? Because you are, as it says here in the teaching, you are drawing life and vitality into the body and every limb and organ of the body via those blessings. Shikar chiyutu ha'anava v'shiflut shel Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom, ma shemilubash b'chol ever ve'ever miYisrael. Now he's... yeah? See, Chayki remembers. I said something about it afterwards because you were with me in the shul. Anyway, it was in the little shul. It wasn't in the tziyuni. We had gone already into the little... I think it was in the little side room. Anyway, so let's see. Yeah. So that part of the teaching is all I wanted to tell you, because otherwise he's already working off of an idea that comes from Likutey Moharan, which is too complex to go into right now. We don't have that much time. But Kim, were you there? Do you remember? Yeah, I love it. It's like it's not, yeah, you remember. And I remember what a nice eye opener it was for some of our ladies. They're like, oh, these women, they really they daven. Okay, now let's see. Oh, you mean the little side room, yeah. Okay, now let's go on. I want to do here. Al Yedei Ha'avonot. Now this is another issue. Which Likutey Moharan? From Chaim Nitzchim. That's lesson 70-something. But I'm not going to go into Chaim Nitzchim now. I'm just skipping over it because there's other ideas I want to touch upon, and it'd be like a whole shiur all by itself. Chaim Nitzchim is about what remains of us to get up for Tchiyat HaMetim. So it's an important lesson, but I'm not going to talk about it now. Okay, you have a little bit of something in every bone, in every part of your body that is your spark that can allow you to get up for Tchiyat HaMetim. It's called your humility. In a nutshell. Okay. Al Yedei Ha'avonot. Now we're over here. Skip ahead to another section from Likutey Halachot. He's going to explore here a little bit about korbanot and parts of the first section of the first section of the prayers. Sin causes us, as this is actually a play on the language in Kohelet, sin causes an interchange or an exchange to happen between the animalistic part of us and the holy part of us. And of course, we, depending on what sfarim we've learned and different ideas that we've absorbed, we understand that we have an animal soul and we have a divine soul. The animal soul provides us with vitality and vital energy, but its energies can often get corrupted. And it's called nefesh habahamis, the animal soul, means because it also facilitates all of the behemiut, all of the, our animalistic tendencies within us, also facilitated and enabled by that. Now, sin means automatically, that's the nature of sin, is that in the moment of the sin, the nefesh habehemit, the animal soul, has taken dominance over the divine soul. That's what sin means. So we call that there's an iruvia, or some kind of exchange or overturning of the proper relationship or balanced relationship between divine soul and animal soul. Now, here in the Likutey Moharan, this is part of Birchot HaShachar Gimel, just telling you where it comes from. He's referring to the story of the exchanged children, for those of you who are familiar with the story. So the whole idea of the prince, the one who's naturally a prince, that he gets exchanged into the subservient position, and the slave son winds up in a dominant position. So we say that's just the result of sin, and also coming into the world where the body has a lot of dominance over the needs of the soul. It tends to express itself and demand what it wants, even against the protests of the higher self. And that's an exchange. It means what should be on top is on the bottom, and what should be on the bottom is on the top. So every morning we have an opportunity to clarify out this exchange and put them back in a proper relationship one with the other. And that's called B'zeh Sod Kol HaKorbanot Kulam. The idea of reciting the korbanot, or bringing, in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, bringing those offerings, or now reciting them, because that's what we do, since we don't have the ability to bring them actually, is the way of being mevarer ruach ha'adam meruach ha'behema, is the way of clarifying out and repositioning the divine soul in its dominant place. Like, let's think about it. The korban, the bringing of an animal offering, is shocking and upsetting to, very shocking and upsetting to the nefesh habehemit. The nefesh habehemit identifies, that the animal soul identifies very strongly with the animal. It's traumatic, and in addition, it's also expensive, which means to say you have to sacrifice in order to purchase an animal. Let's say for a sin offering, you have to actually take your life energy and your time, and that's how you make money. So you have to expend something of yourself, which is the most important part of yourself, because time and energy can never be given back. It's once it's spent, it's spent. And so you have to invest that in this animal that has to be shechted and brought up on the altar. And it's sort of like, oh, my blood. You know, it's like damim in Hebrew means both money and blood. It's like as soon as that blood comes pouring out of the animal, it's like, oh, no, you're never going to see that stuff again, because you have to expend your damim, your money, and the identification that you have naturally with the physicality of this animal. You have to be mitzta'er. That's part of the process of feeling loss and traumatized by the animal having to be shechted in order to expiate your own sin, right? So that reasserts the dominance of the divine soul, because the divine soul, the higher soul, says, I prefer to sacrifice my worldly self, my worldly energies, in order to cleanse myself from sin. And that's called coming out of the state of exchange, or this reversal. Everyone's with me? It's a big idea. It's explored at very great length in the story of the exchanged children. I just gave it to you kind of in a nutshell. V'chol echad, kefi ma shema'arev al yedei avonotav ruach ha'adam v'ruach ha'behema. And every person, in as much as this is something that's part of their story, that they have this kind of mixing up going on inside of themselves between their holy soul, their higher soul, and the animal soul. כשאינו זוכה לתקן בחייו חס ושלום, אז הוא צריך לקבל עונשו להיות נע ונד בתוך כף הכלא. I mean, if a person doesn't manage to fix all this stuff in one lifetime, they wind up getting all kinds of trouble in the next world, and they wind up afterwards to have to sometimes be reincarnated as an animal. עד שמקבל עונשו בשלמות, אז יסתכן, stay afterwards, like have a whole... The goal is not the exchange, the goal is to what we call to come out of the state of exchange. That's the language. And so that's the process of teshuvah. Ki ha'onesh hu b'shvil hatikun, right? It's all part of the process of correction. And therefore we say, she'omrin parshat ha'korbanot, u'perek ezehu mekoman, which is actually like ezehu mekoman shel zvachim, which is kind of summing up of all of the details. Once, Freda, that's a very big thing to bring up right now about what happens in Gilgal. But basically, it's a constriction of your chas v'shalom. No one should ever have to be mitgilgal to an animal. That's like to assume the form of a lower form of life, with all of its restrictions on your ability to exercise your bechira chofshit, is considered to be one of the worst punishments that exist. So no one should have to come back in any gilgul of any form whatsoever. Say amen. I just give you a big bracha. Okay, so let's go on. We have to stop already. But Ezehu Mekoman Shel Zvachin, I just want to tell you one point on it, which is very important. The idea, this saying of where is the place of the Zvachim, where is the place, is this idea of in your own mind and in your own consciousness. Because Ezehu Mekoman Shel Zvachin is a recitation that you say of what kind of sacrifice, where its blood is spilled and where it's supposed to be done and where is it shechted. It's a part from the Mishnah. It's a section from the Mishnah. So, but when you say it, it's like, imagine like in the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash where the altar was, and sort of like in your mind and in your consciousness, you're moving from pillar to post, chasing these korbanot around the courtyard, in order to bring them up here, do it this way, do it that way. And through your recitation and through your mind and your heart, everything working together. So when all of these parts of you are working together, it's like you're going through all of the potential gilgulim and doing teshuvah as if you have brought up all of these offerings. So it's an opportunity that's every day that exists. And then the last thing I want to tell you, which is actually too big an idea to tell you on one foot, and we have to stop. So we will continue next week, Bezrat Hashem. I hope it was, and for those who came in late, meaning on time for our regular time, because we changed the clocks in Israel, you're on time for what would have been a 6 o'clock class. I don't remember. Yeah, but we actually had to start at 5 p.m. Israel time because we've changed the clocks in Israel, and they haven't changed them on the East and West Coast yet. So please forgive me, those of you who just came in now. I'm sorry that the office didn't send out a notice that we are sticking to U.S. time and readjusting on our end here. So please forgive me if you missed the class. Oh, we're changing already next Motzei Shabbos, so by next Motzei Shabbos, by next time we won't have the issue. But for everyone who missed the beginning of the class and they want to catch up, we did a lot. I think they usually put them up. Yossi usually has them up by Monday or Tuesday, something like that. So it will be posted. And I'm very, very sorry that you were not informed that we were starting an hour earlier. Meir Elkaba started at 11 instead of 10. So I'm not sure exactly what they did. Huh. Every year we go by New York time. Oh, I understand. He wasn't meant to start then. He started then because he was confused about also the timing. Yeah, I just stuck with what we usually do, which is that we go according to New York time. Okay, so anybody who wasn't here for the whole thing, please forgive. I'm sorry that a note didn't go out. And the class will be posted, Bezrat Hashem, sometime this week. Hopefully by Monday, Tuesday. Okay, everything good. Your only good news.